Welcome to the 5th annual LCA State of the City address. My name is Tyrone Hawkins, aka Walnut, the Lyrical Genie, for those who know me as that, president of LCA, and it's hot outside. Background on LCA. The mission of Lynn Community Association is to promote pride and ownership in Lynn's community through beautification, education, recreation, and neighborly relationships, which is awesome. I want to give a thank you to Starbucks. I guess they're not here right now. They give some wonderful food and drinks and things like that. That's great. Appreciate that. I also want to give a shout out to our board members, Josh Goodwin over there. Last year I thought he was the mayor's Secret Service person. And we have Patrick Devaney. He's somewhere there. There's Patrick. Duncan Maitland, Douglas Maitland, because I don't know the names apart, but yeah, they're here. Unfortunately, some of the other board members can't make it tonight. They're probably at the beach. Anyways, we want to welcome the mayor. She's going to do a great speech for you all today. And thank you all for coming out on this hot, sunny, beautiful day, 80-something degrees out. In this beautiful library. We want to thank the library for hosting this event for us. It's wonderful. I'd like to give a light applause for them because that's really beautiful. Second year they've done that for us. Really, really appreciate that. So, did I miss anything? If not, I'll come back and say more things. So we're going to have questions and answers after the mayor. If you don't mind, we can keep it kind of brief so we can get questions amongst everyone. And the mayor would probably love to come back to you if you have another question. I assume that if she want to do it that way. All right. So thank you, and I'm going to welcome you, Mayor Judith Flanagan Kennedy.
Good evening. It's so nice to be here at the historic Lynn Public Library with all of you. As Lady Bird Johnson once stated, perhaps no place in any community is so totally democratic as the town library. The only entrance requirement is interest. Before I get started, let me share this interesting tidbit with you. The mural right here, up above me, is called The Awakening of Ignorance, and although it looks as if the mural is painted on the wall, it is actually painted on canvas and attached to the wall. It was commissioned and donated in 1900 by a well-known and wealthy shoe manufacturer. It was the first public commission for artist Louis Mora, whose official portrait of President Warren G. Harding hangs in the White House. The mural portrays a group of 6 cave dwellers who stand amazed, frightened, and overcome by a supernatural vision of the civilization that is to be, as represented by a city floating in the sky. The winged figure in the center portrays progress. Today, I want to update you on a variety of developments, initiatives, and the progress we are making here in Lynn. The first topic has to be the snow. I'm sorry, but with the 108 inches of snow, all but a distant memory, let me start with our snow-free roadways. You may have noticed the Lynnway is getting a makeover as I speak. It is one of the 4 major entrances to our city, and its rehabilitation is wonderful news. In addition to its paving, we are taking a proactive approach to our waterfront plans and working with the Boston Metropolitan Planning Organization to study the best way to get pedestrians across the Lynnway safely when it becomes built out. The study kicked off in April and will be finished this fall. Options being explored include traffic calming, pedestrian overpasses, and affording better vehicular access to the waterfront. In tandem with this study, EDIC and Community Development are exploring the creation of a southbound left-hand turn to service the ferry and other small businesses on Blossom Street. In all, our vision is to connect the city with the waterfront, creating a walkable, livable community that promotes human interaction. Sticking with transportation improvements, we are eyeing the intersections of Federal Street and Boston Street for improvements, as well as streamlining how Eastern Ave intersects with Stanwood Street. Although smaller in comparison to the Lynnway, these roads have major impacts on our daily commutes and quality of living. The disruption we are feeling at Wyoming Square will be well worth it once this $6 million project is completed. As of today, the project is well ahead of schedule, with final punch list items scheduled to be completed by early 2016. When completed, residents will enjoy not only a new stretch of paved road from Flax Pond to the 7-Eleven, but also improved signals, medians, and sidewalks. From Wyoma, we have already turned our attention to the next stretch of roadway, advocating to the transportation powers in Boston for rehabilitation of Linfield Street from 7-Eleven west to Great Woods Road at Gannon Golf Course. And not that this is the most interesting information, but Andy Hall, our new DPW chief, is doing yeoman's work. In 2015, I was astonished when I got these statistics. DPW distributed 11,000 tons of road salt and 440 tons of sand, spread 20,000 gallons of liquid calcium de-icing agent, fielded 860 pothole complaints, of which 89% have been remedied, ground down 48,000 square yards of roadway, paved numerous streets with 5,000 tons of hot mix asphalt, and swept the entire city, making 2 passes, removing approximately 3,900 cubic yards of material. In addition, the new automated trash pickup program reduced solid waste tonnage by 30% and increased recycling tonnage by 117%. So good job, all of you out there. On the budget and finances, I am happy to report that I have sent my 5th balanced budget to the tune of $292 million to the council. They reviewed it and approved it last night, 10-0. So that will go into effect on July 1st. With an ever wary eye on the bottom line, we remain on solid financial ground. Our bond rating has seen yet another uptick and now sits at AA1, a solid indication to those looking to do business with us that we have our financial house in order. We continue to explore ways to challenge our workforce to be competitive and find new ways to conduct the business of government. One thorn in our budgetary side remains the issue of net school spending. However, I am happy to report that I will be meeting with the Lieutenant Governor next week and have already met with DESE officials on how to get Lynn back into the good graces with our school spending. I'm confident that we will be able to work with the executive branch and the legislature to satisfy their concerns while continuing to maintain a high level of all other municipal services. On our own buildings and structures, much like your own homes, keeping up with our facilities is an essential component to maintaining the strength of our city. Having completed the interior work at the beautiful GAR building in downtown, we have turned our attention to the windows and facades. The GAR building is a wonderful resource that has been sorely underutilized. When completed, we aim to open its doors and market its availability to civic groups, Civil War puffs, and the general populace. It should be utilized as it was meant to be. We have also fully funded the expansion of the Wyoma Square parking lot at $730,000. The Wyoma area is a thriving business district with restaurants, banks, financial institutions, and thousands of daily visitors. Adequate parking is an essential component to maintaining and expanding this level of business activity. The lot expansion dovetails with the major work out front and should start later this year with a 2016 completion date. Our work at High Rock Reservation continues. Community Development received a $70,000 grant for the stone cottage and has applied for an additional $70,000 to continue rehabilitating this historic structure. As outlined in the master plan, when completed, the stone cottage will be used for classroom space for school and community groups who want to utilize the observatory. The goal is to not only attract our own residents, but also groups and field trips from outside the city, much like they do at Nature's Classroom in New Hampshire or at the Ipswich River Sanctuary. High Rock, the reservation itself, and the cottage are examples of more city gems that should be utilized to their fullest potential. This week, crews finished up a brand new electrical service at Seaport Marina. This work complements the new fuel dock, new dock space, and the transient dockage we will soon be installing. In all, we have brought this city resource back from the brink of total ruin. If you remember, I did offer it up for sale several years ago. It's still ours, and happy to say that. It's a great asset and an important puzzle piece for our waterfront. Having installed air conditioning, which opens us up to year-round booking in the auditorium, we have also received a grant from the Massachusetts Cultural Facilities Fund to rehabilitate the backstage dressing rooms and related amenities, AKA the cells. Built in 1948, the auditorium is a wonderful facility, but updates to these areas will keep Pat Benatar, Paul Anka, and Steve Miller coming back again and again. On the schools, on the educational front, we are well on our way to completing our new Marshall Middle School. It will not only transform education for students who attend this new school, but will also strengthen the entire surrounding neighborhood. When complete, this state-of-the-art 180,000 square foot facility will house approximately 1,100 students. After Marshall, we are slated to begin advocating for a new Pickering School. I have just funded a feasibility study at $750,000, and we are actively reviewing our options for the new school's siting. If the timing for this school goes along with the timetable for the Marshall Middle School, we would be looking at approximately a 2020 completion date. On our parks and open space, the $4 million bond that we signed into law has touched just about every corner of the city. Renovations, including a splash pad at Neptune Boulevard Park, Barry Park field improvements, Breed tennis and basketball courts, Fry courts, Gallagher play equipment and courts, Magnolia courts, and the soon-to-be-installed bathrooms at Lynn Woods will keep our children happy, safe, and at play. The bond money has been put to great use. Up at Gannon, I am pleased to report that a new master plan has been developed that outlines the most cost-effective manner to utilize lease payments on capital upkeep. Excuse me. Gannon is truly one of the city's jewels, and in my estimation, is better than private courses like Tedesco and Kernwood. We will continue to do all we can to keep it as such. Today, we are also in the midst of the installation of our third splash pad at Kiley Park. It should be turned on just in time for the August heat. Kiley is another park that has seen a major transformation in just a short period of time. Hats off to all that have contributed to its rehabilitation and management. With our master plan in place for the Lynn Common, I was honored to celebrate the total rehabilitation of the Frederick Douglass Bandstand by presiding over a marriage this past weekend. In addition to occasional matrimony, we plan to program it with three-piece bands and other fun activities starting later this summer. It is the centerpiece of the Common and an iconic Lynn structure that will now last another 100 years. Right across the street, the restoration of the smaller portion of the Common is underway. The long-awaited rehabilitation of the antique fence, walkway, and the addition of period-style lighting will go a long way highlighting this area as the beautiful gateway to the downtown that it should be. When completed, we will turn our attention to the larger Common. Having completed our Flax Pond Park and High Rock Park projects, we held a renovation ceremony at Neptune Boulevard Park, showcasing over $800,000 worth of improvements, including new play equipment, new fields, and the city's second splash pad. Major park investments like these are not only wonderful for them, but also important from an economic and community building standpoint. We will also soon be opening bids for our open space and recreation plan. This important document is required for the city to pursue state park funding and is also a wonderful opportunity to us, for us to reevaluate ourselves from a parks and playground perspective. The plan will not only detail the physical park's green space, but also park management, and will assess the facilities within them. It will give us a good indication on where the next round of park funding should be spent. Let's move you into the cultural district. The Lynn Auditorium continues to rock and roll and has steadily become the needed city destination that I had talked about 6 years ago. This year, we will set yet another milestone, eclipsing the number of A-list bookings from last year. As of today, we are on sale with 11 current shows, and we'll be adding Keith Lockhart and the Steve Miller Band in the coming weeks. On show nights, we are attracting thousands to our downtown from all over New England. The importance of the economic spin-off created before and after shows cannot be understated. Ticket holders pour into our streets after shows looking for a place to eat or drink, and our new restaurants are booked up weeks in advance. In addition to the auditorium, the Arts and Cultural District is full of exciting news. Lynn Arts and the museum have merged, and I am happy to report that Drew Russo is finding his groove as the new director. I heard a thumbs up over there. I agree. Kate Lucchini is back in action as our interim cultural district director and is busy at work. This is a bad typo. Booing events. No, she is not booing events. I know Kate, she's a nice lady. She is booking events. Scheduled happenings include the Caribbean American Heritage Festival at the Museum Park this Saturday from 12 to 4, the annual Clock to the Rock Road Race on September 17th, Oktoberfest beer tasting on September 18th, the Farmers Market, which is set to open next week, live music on Wednesday nights in Central Square, and jazz at Mocha Cafe on select Saturday afternoons. Also, in addition to the opening of the expanded Raw Arts, the School of Rock recently opened its doors to a packed house. We are so excited to welcome them as our newest cultural district partner, and will do all that we can to help them succeed. On the economic front, it seems like every time I give this speech, there's a new signature restaurant that has opened up. If you haven't been downtown to our latest additions, you are missing out on one colossal burger. Actually, I should say, I think it's 26 colossal burgers that are on the menu at R.F. O'Sullivan's. And I am trying to eat my way through the entire menu, one burger at a time. And there are also some tasty steak tips mixed with a dash of Spanish cuisine, at our new restaurant, April's on Buffum Street, another fantastic new restaurant. In addition, if you haven't noticed, Tatiana's is under new management. I'm excited to try out yet another restaurant when they reopen their doors later this year. I am also happy to report that Joe Mulligan was selected as the city's internal fellow as part of our Transformative Development Initiative. This is known as a TDI, that is being funded by the Massachusetts Development Finance Agency. Also, I may refer to that sometimes as Mass Development. The City of Lynn was selected as one of only 3 communities within the Commonwealth to receive Mass Development funding for this initiative. Joe will be assisting us on various economic development initiatives and studies that the city will be undertaking in the downtown area over the next few years. Speaking of studies, we are in the midst of compiling information for 3 major studies, including an updated economic development strategy, a housing market study, and Community Development's consolidated plan, which sets out CD's priorities over the next 5 years. In tandem with these studies, Boston Street is being studied from both a zoning perspective and a traffic perspective. Boston Street has seen steady growth with the new CVS, the new Planet Fitness, and plans for a residential component. It is also a very important feeder road connecting the Wyoma Business District to our main downtown. I'm also happy to report that we are continuing to fund our facade program that affords small businesses up to $4,000 to improve the outside aesthetics of their businesses, and we'll be installing a round of new antique lights this coming year. I like to invest in our own resources where private investment occurs, and as such, new lighting is slated for the streets that surround Rossetti's, R.F. O'Sullivan's, and Demici's, as well as Oxford Street. Also, we have some good economic indicators that are worthy of note. I have never witnessed as much land being sold as I have in the past year in and around our downtown and waterfront. Developers are keenly aware of what we have going here in Lynn. They are cognizant of the opportunities here, and they are making their moves. We have also seen such growth in the residential sector, which unfortunately might have been reflected to some of you in the form of a higher home tax bill, but that reflects the growth in valuation in the city. In fact, in case anybody's wondering if we would ever favor or undervalue some of our own houses, the area where my chief of staff and I live in separate homes saw almost a 20% increase in the valuation of our homes, and it was the highest growth section percentage-wise within the city. Lastly, Market Basket is back on the map. With the internal struggles behind them, we are still very bullish on the prospects for Federal Street. Although talk is cheap, all indications are favorable, and I remain very optimistic about the prospects for Lynn Market Basket in 2016 to 2017. We did, as you can well remember, get caught up in the internal family feud that took place in July of last year with the Market Basket. Once that was settled, the new old owners, or the old new owners, Arthur T. Demoulas and his group, excuse me, had to do some corporate restructuring on their own. They then got back to opening those stores that were already close to being online, such as the one that in Revere had pretty much had everything but the perishables stocked at the time that the family feud took place. But I am assured that we are still in the pipeline for the next round of expansion of Market Basket. Then we have other miscellaneous projects of note, which include, on the waterfront, after a successful first year, our ferry just reopened. We had a goal of having 10,000 trips in the first year, and we had over 13,000 trips. The ferry is one of the first steps of development along our waterfront. Commuters are now able to travel to Boston in a mere 30 minutes via a beautiful high-speed vessel. And don't forget, on Friday rides home, commuters will be serenaded as EDIC has implemented live music throughout the summer as part of the cultural district plans. Other important subjects of note include the continuance of our popular senior tax abatement program that gives seniors $600 off of their taxes for participation and volunteering in city departments. In addition, we will continue our downtown community policing initiative and the CLT officers who are always willing to speak to community groups such as yours. I believe both of these programs are vital to reducing crime by connecting our officers with residents on a personal level. In fact, major crime in Lynn is down 10% from the period 2009 to 2013. Starbucks has opened its doors on the Lynnway, and we have once again made sure that our ponds are maintained, funding weed eradication at both Flax and Sluice Pond. And in this year's budget, I added money for growth control over at the Floating Bridge Pond as well. That has seen some neglect over the years. The marshy area has grown out, and it's important, I think, to have all of our ponds looking as good and being as ecologically sound as we can possibly get them. This week, we will also begin hiring approximately 200 summer kids through our summer youth program. I think we can all remember our first job. Our youth program is not only designed to put a few bucks in kids' pockets, but is also designed to instill a sense of pride and responsibility in our youth. We are pleased to have businesses like Eastern Bank, the YMCA, Campfire USA, ERC Wiping, and Kelly Honda stepping up to the plate, offsetting our costs by 50%. It's a wonderful opportunity to get their foot, for kids to get their foot in the door and learn how to conduct themselves in a real business setting. And I might add that we are continuing to do this by lottery. We want every eligible child within the city to have an equal and fair chance at obtaining one of these city jobs. So if any of you know me personally, it's not going to help your neighbor's kid get a job. Sorry. Lastly, we are excited about the prospects of a new YMCA. I have been in touch with leadership at the Y, and they are committed to doing in Lynn what they have done elsewhere on the North Shore. The Y is such a wonderful place for both adults and kids, and I'm excited about the prospects for a new Lynn YMCA. And we really are getting into some more solid planning rather than saying, gee, wouldn't it be nice? We currently have within, up at the law department, a request on how we can take part of Wheeler Street that currently runs right in front of the YMCA. What we would like to do is close off that part of Wheeler Street, bring that to encompass the island that currently splits Wheeler Street and the street that continues on. I don't know if it's State Street or Commercial or Neptune Boulevard. In any event, that will create an additional parcel of land, and the YMCA will be able to build their new facility on that parcel of land while maintaining all of their services in the current building until the new one is open for use. One thing we want to make sure of is that the kids don't lose any place that they have currently for recreational opportunity. So all in all, we are beating back that old perception, opening up new restaurants, rocking it out at the auditorium, speeding into Boston on the ferry, fixing our parks, reducing the crime rate, scheduling events, working with developers, rehabilitating our facilities, and building new schools. Lynn is a wonderful community of schools, woods, ponds, ocean, playgrounds, roadways, facilities, businesses, and people. From Flax and Sluice Pond to Goldfish Pond and Kings Beach, from Gannon to Manning and Fraser, from classical to English to Marshall Middle School, from Zimmons to Rossetti's to the Porthole, from Breed Playground to Kylie and Magnolia, from Goodwin Circle to our waterfront, and from the auditorium right here to the library. We have it all in this 14 square miles of land that we call home. It's our job to fix, facilitate, seed, push, maintain, pursue, and develop these amenities and continue to make our home, Lynn, Massachusetts, a better place to work, live, and conduct business. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present this information to you today. Like many other community organizations in the city, you are part of what makes Lynn so vibrant. And now, I'd be happy to take any questions that you might have.
The Orlando City Pond Association, really, first of all, let me commend you on what I think is exceptionally wonderful leadership here in the city of Lynn that we haven't had for years. And I really think it's shown everywhere.
Thank you very much.
Secondly, I want to thank you particularly for the ponds and the fact that I no longer have to run to your office to find out if we made the cleanup list.
I'd really rather see you in a less agitated state, to be honest.
But because I'm such a big mouth, and because people look to me for being a big mouth, I must have been asked at least 67 times in the past 3 weeks since I've been back from Sarasota, what's happening with Union Hospital. So people want to know, especially up in our area, you know, Paul Lanzikos is still running around saying to me at Pride that, you know, we ought to be converting it to behavioral health. And I want to know where it is at this point. Danny Cahill told me he thought they were going to be closing.
My most recent update that I got from Bob Norton, who is the president of North Shore Medical Center, he indicated to me that their original plan for a center of excellence for mental health treatment facilities had they had underestimated the cost of it by about 30%, so that they were going back to the drawing board. And I said, when you mean back to the drawing board, instead of a center of excellence, we're going to get a center of mediocrity? Is that what you get for the 30% over budget? And he said, no, we still have to. They hadn't yet finalized the merger with Hallmark Health. And as you know, they had the problem with the attempted merger down on the South Shore with South Shore Hospital. So they move very slowly. They're not very good at giving up information. I have also had the new president of Partners, or CEO of Partners, in my office to speak with him. And it's like trying to get your teenage kid to tell you where they were for the last 3 hours. You get all this runaround, and you never really get a clear answer. But I can tell you that they seem to have been bogged down a little bit by the legal problems that they were having with the South Shore. And every month, every year that they are bogged down with that, it keeps our facility open longer. So I hope it will be there for years to come.
Yeah, not to monopolize, but I know I've written to you about this before. I have run all the figures at my disposal for nationally and locally what the costs are for behavioral health, and I have, been able to extract, given the number of people that we have here in Lynn, the number of beds they currently occupy for behavioral health, the number that would be coming in regionally, what my estimate, my best estimate is that Lynn would be being burdened with another $60 million a year to take care of that 38% of the population, 27 to 38%, who will be homeless, who will not be returned to their home communities, and who will take up residence in Lynn Woods and other places.
Right, and I have suggested to the powers that be at North Shore Medical Center and at Partners to at least consider making us a center of excellence for some other specialty. I said, look, I'm sorry that mental illness still carries a certain stigma about it, but it does. And Lynn has always felt as though it has gotten the short end of the stick on a variety of things. And why couldn't we be the center for cardiology? Why couldn't we be the center for proctology. It would just, I said, why are we given the mental health beds? And they really didn't have an answer except to mutter something about how our facility, our grounds, the ability to expand here is very limited, whereas up at Salem, they do have the acreage that they would desire. I've heard about how the model of healthcare delivery is now to have regional centers rather than to have community hospitals. It's all about the cost savings for the big so-called nonprofit health delivery firms like North Shore and Partners. It's tough to fight. And we have explained to them, okay, you can draw your little maps and have your little projected data, but just try the reality of getting from Goodwin Circle to Salem Hospital at 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, because it can't be done quickly and efficiently. I've told them, you will see me with a picket sign outside your window. I do understand you have a business to run, but you also have to understand that I have a city that I have to look out for, and we need to have a spectrum of services available to us at Union Hospital, and not just this center of excellence that will be used by people who, frankly, get cast out of society in many cases. So I'll keep talking to them as long as I have my voice. All right. I know you've been very active up there, all of you, and Ward 1 and beyond, and it's been very helpful. I think it has caused them to rethink their plans, if not reject them, but at least they are very aware of our feelings. So thank you for that. All right, I'm going to wait while that goes by, and I think I'm going to start in the back and move to the front. So we'll go with next.
I have a thing. I think Market Basket is a great idea, but we have 3 supermarkets in Lynn now. How about a Lynn Marketplace like the one in Lynn Fields with some entertainment, some nightlife, some restaurants, something to bring real life, real revenue into the city?
I think it's a wonderful idea. First of all, let me explain that the 21 acres, 22 acres on which Markets Basket is going to be located is privately owned by an individual who is negotiating a lease agreement with the Demoulas family to place a Market Basket there. However, if you've seen the site, you'll know that the Factory of the Future sits at the very front of it, and then it extends way back over to the old neighborhood on one side of Federal Street, and on the other side of Federal Street, there's another vacant lot of about 7 acres. And that 7-acre lot is, in fact, part of the 22-acre so-called Market Basket site. And I do believe that the developer has intentions of putting a small strip mall on the other side. That's part of the answer to your question. The other part of it is, I love Market Street in Lynnfield. I noticed it's very similar to a place in Hingham called The Launch. And it is also similar to a place called 3rd Street Development up in Burlington. It's across from the Burlington Mall. I've tracked down the developer of the 3rd Street because that was the third one I saw, and I said, you know, I wasn't thinking the Market Basket area, I was thinking down on the waterfront. And in particular, the Hingham site, called the Launch at Hingham, was built on the site of the old Hingham shipyard. So it had some land brownfields issues, it had access issues, because much like Lynn, Hingham is not accessible by a major highway. It is accessible by Route 3A and a little further out by Route 3. But you can't just zip down 95 or 93 and get to Hingham. In Lynn, we're accessible by 1A and 107, but not, again, not by any of those highways. Hingham has a ferry service that drops you right off at the Launch at Hingham. We have a ferry service that could provide that same sort of amenity. I went down there with the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce one day just to take a look around. It's really a nice place to spend a warm afternoon. There are ice cream shops. There are casual restaurants like up here there's the Salem Beer Works. They have the Hingham Beer Works. They have a fine dining restaurant, and I can never remember the name of it. It's owned by the Marky Mark, Donnie Wahlberg, and it's a, well, Wahlburgers is the not so fancy one. The fancy one got so much business that they decided to open a second, more casual location, and that is Wahlburgers that they built down there. There's also, I mean, a Bed Bath & Beyond, a Target that is called what they call an urban design Target. So it goes up rather than sprawls across, so the footprint is much smaller. They have a cinema multiplex, and they have some moderate to high-end housing, as well as a little amphitheater. Once you get off the ferry, there's a place for, you know, much like we have the Thursday night concerts on the beach, they can do something similar down there. I love the idea of bringing something like that to Lynn. What we have to do is entice a developer like the people who have developed 3rd Street to come and take a look. Well, Dale got like 5 questions, so you can
Downtown is awesome, and it is revitalizing. It's going great. But what are we going to do for parking when it's all said and done? Where are people going to park?
Well, we actually have a number of parking lots already available. We have a very underutilized MBTA parking structure. That, as I understand it, is going to undergo, this is sad, it has not even been painted since the MBTA put it up. But I had met with MBTA officials about 2 months ago, and I'm informed that they'll be putting over $1 million worth of work into that structure. Unfortunately, that does not mean that we're getting great lighting and movable art. What it means is they're going to make it structurally sound again, replace some of the concrete, paint some of the areas where the paint is peeling away. So really, they're just going to provide some long overdue maintenance to it. But I've informed them that even with better lighting, that would be better utilized. It can hold almost 1,000 cars. And it would be a great benefit to the downtown to be able to use that facility to its maximum potential. And we have never done that except during snow emergency. I can't believe I can recall a time when I've been turned away because the lot was full. And I'm getting a hallelujah over here from Ann. So, okay, like I said, I'll start from the back and work to the front. Yeah.
Last year, there's a lot of publicity about undocumented students coming into the Lynn school system. Is that less of an issue this year? And did we ever receive any federal funding to help out?
Okay, the rate of increase has slowed. However, the overall rate of increase for the public schools does remain at a steady uptick. We are currently at a student population of 15,557 new students. One of the issues that we are contending with as well is the number of refugee families who have been resettled in Lynn. If you look on the Massachusetts Office of Refugees Resettlements, you will see that the North Shore received, I believe it's 22 or 23% of all refugees resettled in Massachusetts, but only one city on the North Shore had received these refugees, and that is the city of Lynn. If you look at the state projections for how city by city within Massachusetts the number of refugee families will be resettled, Lynn ranks number 1, ahead of Boston, ahead of Springfield, ahead of Worcester, with 228 projected resettlements. And that is really why I am going to Karen Polito to talk about net school spending. Because net school spending is very complicated. It's a formula that I believe was introduced in the 1980s, and there was a baseline figure brought out in the 1980s. Without going into gory detail on it, generally speaking, for every student you add to your community's schools, you have to increase your budget amount that you provide to the schools. If that child is an English language learner, you have to add not only that amount, but a premium to recognize the fact that he or she is an English language learner. And if that child should have any special needs, and many of our children who are coming from war-torn countries have issues such as PTSD, that will add yet another premium on what you are expected to spend per student. So as a result, we have a situation where I'm going to compare and contrast us with Swampscott. Swampscott is a very bedroom community, stable population. The people who settle there probably have 2.1 children per family. And as a result, their school population stays relatively stable. Therefore, their expected spending stays relatively stable as far as meeting it with the schools. We do not receive any federal funding for, other than the normal course of events federal funding that we get for the schools, but there is nothing added on for all of the resettlement that Lynn has participated in. So even though I have increased in this current budget, the school's budget has increased by 8.79%, where virtually every other department in the city has taken a hit and been cut back. Even though every dime of our new tax growth revenues went into the schools to pay for the trying to get to that number, that baseline number that the state expects us to get, we still cannot reach that number. And it's a result of the larger families that settle someplace like here, the affordable housing and the density of the housing that we have here, and the number of kids that are coming in as English language learners and or as having some kinds of special needs as a result of their lives to this point. We figured out that we would have to cut about 25% of the police and fire department if we were to get to that number that the state is asking. So my first course of action is to seek a diplomatic/political solution with the lieutenant governor to explain to her, because I know she had made education funding a priority during the campaign, but to explain to her how this outdated formula is negatively affecting urban centers like Lynn. And if that is not proven to be successful, I've already talked with the law department to see whether we could bring a court action claiming that the use of this formula is discriminatory toward us in these urban centers. We have always welcomed immigrants. We will continue to always welcome immigrants, but we want the people who are responsible for placing new people here to give us some help, because it's not just the schools. Our municipal trash tonnage goes up. Our police calls increase just by the sheer increase in the population. Our roads have more wear and tear as a result of more cars being on them. It really does have an effect on a city, and I truly believe, I welcome anybody who comes here, but if there are going to be parties responsible for placing them here, show us the money, at the very least. Help us to pay for this. We can't split up our pie into smaller and smaller pieces. It doesn't work after a while.
I think it was back in the 70s or the early 80s, Lowell was designated as a resettlement area for Southeast Asians. Mm-hmm. And they got millions and millions of dollars in federal aid because they were so designated.
Well, the federal government, as I have learned, this money comes through the Department of Homeland Security. The federal government has sent $10 million, that was the figure as of last year, to the Massachusetts Office of Refugee Resettlement. But that money does not flow through to the receiving community. It gets stuck in the Massachusetts ORR, and I still haven't quite figured out what they're doing with it, except to process more people, but it is not finding its way to the end users, many of whom end up here in our community. And that is the point of my meeting with Karen Polito, Lieutenant Governor Polito, is to explain how all of these policy decisions are making it very difficult for me to provide for my own community. We are limited in raising our tax rate. We're capped at 2.5% every year under Prop 2.5. So we do what we can. As I said, every penny of the new growth last year went toward funding the schools, and I could ask for a Prop 2.5 override, but personally I wouldn't support it because this is an ongoing funding situation, and that might be fine for a one-time override, but I don't see any changes in the projections. Lynn's population is going to continue to increase, and we're going to continue chasing that ball on that net school spending number if we don't get some relief from the formula. And I know I'm going on a little bit long about this, but I want to explain just one. I'll give you two examples that are counterintuitive as to why I don't really like this formula. I understand it's the law, and I have to follow it, but it doesn't mean I can't express my displeasure with it. We've already built the new Marshall Middle School. You've seen it's nearing completion. We have funded feasibility studies. We have taken land by eminent domain in amounts of a couple of $1 million. My money going toward the Marshall Middle School does not count toward net school spending. We need the classroom space, but that money that we are spending as a community doesn't count toward school spending. The $750,000 for the Pickering feasibility study will not count toward net school spending. All of the roofs that we've put on, we have 5 elementary schools in service that are more than 100 years old. We've replaced roofs, we've replaced windows, we've replaced boilers. None of those count toward net school spending. And a crazy example is we have a boiler over at Classical. You all know Classical was built on a slab, and some of it is unstable and some of it is more stable. Well, we have a boiler that's located on an unstable part of that slab. It keeps breaking down because when the ground shifts, the boiler breaks, we have to fix it. It's about $10,000 or $12,000 each time we have to fix it. We could move that boiler to a stable part of the slab for about $50,000. But I'm going to let it keep breaking down. You know why? Because to fix it counts toward my net school spending. But if I move it, I have to find that money out of some other department. It's a crazy formula, and I do want to see if I can get the attention of somebody who can help me to make it more equitable for a city like ours. We need the space. We need the space, and we are willing to put our money into getting expanded classroom space, but I'm not really willing to commit millions of city dollars if I'm not going to get some credit for it, because I'm only taking it away from DPW, fire, the library, to give it to the schools and not having it count toward the spending. So we've done Marshall, we're doing Pickering, and after that, I'm going to call it a halt until we get a little bit of fairness in the formula. So, okay. You're not tired of hearing me talk yet? Okay, gentleman right here.
Patrick Manning, Lynn Community Association.
Okay.
You mentioned the aesthetics and the lighting downtown. Any discussion about changing perhaps the lighting along the ocean? I'm thinking of the lighting along the causeway to Nahat, the LED lighting.
That would be a DCR. That would not be, excuse me, that would not be Lynn. And actually, I believe that would be Nahan's problem with the DCR. Okay? Excuse me. Ann, I'm sorry.
I just want to mention something on the calendar. The Friends of the Beach, the concert series.
Yes.
July 3rd is our first concert on Lotus Lane and the David Minutes. But every Thursday night from then on, we're going to have our regular concert series for the Friends. And we have a table where we sell stuff to raise money for the bands. A lot of fun. And if kids. Oh, and then also we have a kids concert, and I don't have a flyer with me, but it's on our website, Friends of Lynn Beach. And we're going to have 2 jazz concerts this year by the Bathhouse. And it has to be on a Sunday morning because it's hot. So 8 to 10. That's our new thing.
I'll come back around to the end in just a minute because we are still up here. So, sir?
I was going to say, the status of
You know what? I'm a pragmatist. I like to work with the facts that I have available to me. And when I first was taking over the mayor's office in January of 2010, I was going through a drawer, and in the very back of the drawer, there was a printed inaugural address from, I believe it was Mayor David Phillips, and I believe he served in the early 1970s. And I read his inauguration speech just to see what was going on in Lynn back when I was in middle school, and was talking about seeing the blue line come to Lynn. And that was 40 years ago. I once used the phrase that I believe the first time we'll see a blue line train in Lynn is when a car jumps the tracks at Wonderland. People thought I was a little flip on that, but realistically speaking, with the hundreds of millions of dollars of problems that the MBTA has right now, and the fact that there has been a building built on the right-of-way that was supposed to be the extension of the blue line, I think the project is not feasible for my term of office or for probably the next 20 or 25 years. I wouldn't see it happening. So with any of my planning or with any of my assumptions that I make in running the city, I do not assume a blue line coming to Lynn, unfortunately. And I think you had your hand up as well. Oh, all right. Good. I answered two questions at once, and then way in the back we have.
I'm by the senior center. Would you be able to install a bocce court in that general area?
A bocce court? Oh my God, I'd love to have a bocce court up there. I'm trying to think of what they have for land because it's pretty built up right at the senior center. Would you consider an indoor bocce court? Would you consider an indoor bocce court?
They have them.
They have an indoor court?
No, they have. They're around to buy. I mean, I think there's probably space someplace around down there.
Let me think about that. That would be something. My uncle, Martin Grasso, lived in North Revere, great uncle actually, and he had a horseshoe pit and a bocce court in his backyard when we were growing up. Then when he got older, he had to move to Brooksby Village up in Peabody, and he built a bocce court. He missed it so much, he built a bocce court and started forming a bocce league over at Brooksby Village. So unfortunately, he's passed on. I wouldn't be able to get any tips from him on how to get it done, but I do know how much senior citizens enjoy playing the game of bocce, and it's great. It's good exercise. It's a good way to keep yourself moving. So I really like that. I really like that idea. We will look into it. I love it. Okay. Oh, well, you're hosting. You can ask questions too. Yeah, sure.
The YMCA. Why can't we not? I mean, I don't know if you know this answer, but all of the North Shore is connected with the Y, like Marblehead, Salem. But if you call and say, "Can I use my YMCA Lynn card?" Oh no, sorry. So
It's not reciprocal.
have you done that? They must have changed it.
Yes, I went to every.
Last year
Wait
I
a
called.
minute.
You don't use it? Oh, good.
It was.
It's been a few years.
I always thought.
I went to Marblehead.
I always thought they had reciprocity. I'd check into it again. Yeah, because I always thought they had reciprocity on the North Shore. All right. Okay. Stanley, hold on. Yes.
Over the last couple of years, as I have become more adjusted to being in and out of this chair, I have noticed the city of Lynn becoming a little bit more compatible in terms of disabilities compliance. Most of these plans are now reassessed, though some quite poorly, but it's still manageable. I love what I'm hearing about what they're doing with the liquids. Okay, it's terrific. One of the biggest problems, though, is there are many sidewalks that are virtually impassable for people with walkers, elderly who have trouble walking, um, as well as being in his chair. I had made several calls to the DPW over the last couple of years regarding certain sidewalks. Not much of response. Now I'm going back to Diane, who hopefully she can tap on.
Well, if you can call my office tomorrow and give us specific locations of where those sidewalks are buckled or otherwise difficult to pass. Sometimes when we knock on the DPW's door, we get a slightly faster response. So we would certainly be happy to help you with that. And another resource I would urge you to look into is Lynn now has a disability commission. They are extremely active and very vocal and very, very good advocates for people with disabilities in the community. And it was Nick Capano, who was one of our members of the commission, who really led the charge in getting the Lynn Woods to become more accessible. And then Nick Menino offered his services to help to grade some of the paths and do what needed to be done up at Lynn Woods to make it enjoyable for people of all abilities. So please call my office tomorrow and we will start to look into those locations on the sidewalks. We don't want them to be dangerous for anybody passing.
I sent by some pictures of an area that's in dire need of it, and that is coming around the corner from Tremont Street by the Brotherhood Credit Union.
Okay.
And now I am on the resident council at Walton Heights.
Okay.
I am also a member of the Mass Senior Action Council to advocate for the city, because now I am living west of what I've seen. And I hear of the things that are becoming more and more difficult for them to do. Wall plazas, sidewalks are also pretty bad, and Church Street on around Sabana.
And those are areas of priority for us because we know a lot of seniors do have difficulty traversing, and we do want to make sure that it's safe for all to pass on those. So we will look into that. Okay, terrific. My chief of staff is here, Jamie Cerulli. She's going to give you a card, and please call that number tomorrow, and we'll get specifics. I know you said around the corner from Tremont near Brotherhood, but we'll get the more details from you tomorrow, okay? Thank you. Stanley?
Okay, Stan Watering, alcohol, lunch. I think you're downplaying the significance of the crisis facing schools. We are $16 million in debt, okay, in terms of net school spending. I've seen a letter from the state, the DSC, stating that we have not even answered their calls to help with the compliance of the way we don't see the letter.
I have to, and I'll explain that.
Yeah.
Continue, please.
Okay, yeah. And so, it's nice to talk to the assistant governor, but she can't make the changes. I agree with you. The funding is crazy. I think that what you spend towards schools, even building the schools or whatever, that should count. But it doesn't. And we are the only urban center in the state that has this problem.
That is not true either.
There are 3 districts, I think, that didn't meet the net school spending.
Well, what is your question? Or do you have a question? Is it more of a comment?
Well, what is your plan going forward other than meeting next week, which is past the next fiscal year? And what, can you answer what you're doing in terms of the letter that, I'm talking about?
Right. Well, two things that you said that I would like to make a correction. It did not say that we were not answering them. It said that we had not provided them with a written plan. We have already spoken with them multiple times about asking them to consider the school construction as part of the net school spending. The schools, so it's not like, oh yeah, the DESE's after us, let's throw that letter in the trash. We are well aware of it, and this meeting with Lieutenant Governor Polito is in part in preparation for our drafting of a written response to the DESC. And the other portion of it that I believe is inaccurate is that we're the only city in the Commonwealth that's having this problem. That's simply not true. This problem all originated when an audit was done of the city of Methuen, and they found that Methuen was using their employees, retired employees' healthcare insurance to use toward net school spending. And because Methuen had not checked a box off in 1983 saying they intended to use that, then they couldn't use it. And then as they decided to audit every community, they found that Lynn had not checked off that box in 1983, but in fact was counting the retirees' health insurance toward net school spending. So this was brought to our attention in December of 13 and applied to fiscal year 13. But we couldn't fix it because we were already in FY14. So they assessed us a penalty. After they took out that $5.5 million, we missed by $300,000. So we had fully funded the schools essentially, but that $5.5 million that was discredited ended up putting us below the 95%, putting us into the penalty incursion phase, and then we continued along with the never-ending ability to, well, the never-ending inability to reach for that net school spending number. Now, Brockton is one of the cities that is considering a suit on the basis of its disproportionate impact on urban communities. So Lynn is not the only community that is struggling with this. As I explained in my presentation, every penny of new tax growth is going to the schools. The school department's budget was increased by 8.79% this year, and everybody else was decreased, virtually everybody else. There were some others, IT got money because we're leasing computers, and the fire department is getting a new fire truck, which costs over $1 million, so the lease payments for that made them go up a little bit. But generally speaking, everybody's budget was cut in order to put as much money as is possible into the schools without affecting other city services. So we're doing what we can. I'm sorry, there are advocates for the schools like you. Thank God there are people like you. I love to see people advocate for the schools. And I get it at the school committee meetings every week because I have 6 good advocates for the schools there. But by the same token, my job is to look out for the entire city. And I am not going to lay off police. I'm not going to close a fire department. I'm not going to cut back on the DPW filling potholes because the state is not going to count some of the money that I'm spending on my schools toward their $151 million number that has come from a formula that's over 30 years old. I'm sorry I can't please you on that one, but I can't. I apologize for that. Any other? You can call 599-1444, and that will get you right into the mayor's office. No need to press 1 for whatever it is. Okay, well, 599-1444, 1444. Remember like Moses Malone for the Philadelphia 76ers when he predicted their sweep of the up to the NBA championship? He said 444, and that's our number. So, all right, well, thank you all. You've been a really, really good audience.